It's time, Fort Wayne. Your sports, your station. It's the Sports Rush with Brett Rump. Covering all the topics that hit a nerve here in the Summit City.
Clark, 11 yards, touchdown.
Only on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Now here's your host, Brett Rump.
The greatest, most interesting, most important person of all time.
You are incredible. You're older than one.
Yeah, well, you're half right.
What is this, amateur hour?
This is going to be huge.
I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just when I think you've said the stupidest thing ever, you keep talking.
I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard.
That boy ain't right.
The simplest way to put it, I have problems.
Welcome to the alleged show.
Time to slip slide your way on home for Thursday. It is the Sports Rush, your daily local sports fix, 4 to 6. I am Brett Rump along with Adam Lundy, and we've got you connected on the Parkview Sports Medicine text line, 260-447-8500. Pack Show with Rob Blackman, voice of the Purdue Boilermakers, joining us coming up later this hour. Jalen Jackson, hometown proud. Jalen Jackson putting on a show this year for Purdue Fort Wayne. He did it again last night with 20 points as the Mastodons roll to a win over Wright State. He will join our program coming up at 5:20, and Eric Dutkevich is going to be all prepped and ready to talk high school girls sectional semifinals, which is coming up tomorrow night. We're going to be out at Northrop for 4A action between Northside Northrop, followed by Snyder Carroll. And then after the games end, we'll head to the Pine Valley Pizza Hut for our post-game show. All of it presented by Parkview Sports Medicine. Join us for our high school basketball coverage coming up tomorrow. But you're always connected and always invited and encouraged to text the show. Questions, comments, or suggestions, 260-447-8500. That's 260-447-8500. And last night, it was Mastodon Mania at the Coliseum. Got to get it off to a good start, right? It's back-to-back games, all at home, men and women, both at home this week with 2 games each. And you got to get it off on the right foot, and the Mastodon men did just that last night at the Coliseum with a convincing 87-64 win over Wright State. The 2 winningest programs in the Horizon League over the last decade. And these 2 teams went double overtime in Dayton, but nothing close last night as the Dons kind of got through a little bit of a slump to start the game, 3.5 minutes without a point, and then they were down 7-0. Next thing you know, it was, 14-9?
Yeah.
Dons went on a 14-2 run, and they just kept pulling away, had a 10-point lead at the half. 4 minutes into the second half, they were up by 20, and then kind of cruised from there. Got as much as a 23-point lead, which was the final margin, and at times it was as close as 14, but it was pretty much not in doubt most of the second half. I know, Adam, you get a little extra nervous when you're sitting in here listening, but really it wasn't in doubt. Mastodons were playing well. Wright State was struggling shooting the basketball, and it was a nice win at the Coliseum to start off Mastodon Mania with a Mastodon Massacre.
Oh, man, you're getting all the Mastodons in there.
I'm trying to get all the catchphrases. Well, you realize I came up with support the fort.
You
so
did.
I've got to come up with some creative, that was a Mastodon Massacre.
And you got your check for royalties from support the fort,
that's
right?
where I dropped the ball on support the fort. So I have to come up with a new one and actually get it trademarked. So
make some money.
I can get for all of the merchandise sales.
Oh, yeah.
But, a nice win last night. Now, tonight, the women are going to be in action at the Gates Center against Oakland, a team they beat by 40 up in Oakland. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because you have to be concerned if you're a coach. And, of course, Maria Marquesano, one of those that is always seeing the glass half empty. And when you beat somebody by 40, do you get complacent? Do you get overconfident? Because I can guarantee you, Oakland's a much better team than the one that got beat by 40, and they're going to come in here wanting to send a little message to the Mastodons that they didn't take lightly to getting pounded at home by 40 points. 77-37 was the final up in Rochester, Michigan. So that game tonight at the Gates Center, you know what? I want to take a moment because it isn't just about our college basketball at the Division I level in this city. Got to give a huge shout out to some of the other colleges that we've got here that don't get enough recognition, probably even on this program, because of my affiliation with the Mastodons, being the voice of the Dons. I obviously see more, know more of what's happening with Purdue Fort Wayne. And sometimes with that schedule, it's very hard to keep up on everything happening at Indiana Tech and St. Francis. But I did kind of a deep dive into both Indiana Tech and St. Francis and what seasons they are having.
Oh, yeah. No question.
I mean, we go through and we say, okay, the St. Francis men are like 15-8. And that by far the worst record out of the four programs, men and women's basketball, for St. Francis and Indiana Tech. The St. Francis women's team is 20-3.
Wow.
15-1 in league play. I mean,
yeah.
You think about our women's teams right now. The Indiana Tech and St. Francis are both 15-1 in their league. And Purdue Fort Wayne is what, 13-0? So that is 43-2, their combined conference records, women's basketball at the collegiate level here in Fort Wayne.
That's awesome.
Give them a shout out. Give them a hand for that. Come on. But all these people in the studio, and they just sit here and look at me. Come on, man. You got to give them a little bit of love, because that's fantastic. And so you don't have to, if you don't want to go to the Coliseum or you don't want to go to Gates, you've got options. But there's great basketball, and you should support it in this city, because these young ladies, and, of course, the young men as well, they're playing their hearts out and having a heck of a season. I mean, imagine that, 20-3. 20-5, and 18-5, I think, are the three records of the three women's basketball teams we've got, and they are 43-2 in conference play. It's unbelievable.
That is unbelievable.
Another thing I saw, too, with Mastodon women, I noticed this, because there's something was going viral. Kentucky's coach had a video of something she said at a post-game presser where she talked about trying to mold a team with players. You're going out and getting out of the transfer portal, and what happens is it shifts your loyalty from those that you recruit and you build in a program that are freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and then all of a sudden you go and you have to make these promises to transfers. And so what happens is you feel like you owe them because you made promises to get them to come to your campus. And so they feel privileged. They feel like, you owe it to them because that's what you told them to get them to come. And then the grinders that have been there freshman, sophomore, junior years, that have been developing their games, that have been getting better, that are part of a good culture, they end up not getting to play because all of a sudden they're shoved down the depth chart because these transfers. And she said, I've made a mistake and I've been a bad coach because I got sucked in to the promises made, and they didn't keep their end of the deal, and they weren't playing well. They weren't as committed as some of the other kids. And she's, I want kids that are going to make the commitment to put in the work to be better. And she said, I got away from that because of the way we were recruiting out of the transfer portal and some of the promises that were being made to some of the players that we were recruiting. And she said, I'm not doing it anymore. No more. And so I saw this coach, and I remembered that Purdue Fort Wayne played Kentucky earlier this year, and I noticed it was a 12-point game, and I think there's like a dozen teams that are in the SEC or a major conference that Kentucky has beaten by more than they beat Purdue Fort Wayne. In fact, Purdue Fort Wayne was only 1 point down going into the fourth quarter, and they were ahead at halftime. And so you think, okay, if they can just break through and get to the big dance, they can play with anybody in the country. Because what's Kentucky now? 18-1 or 17? I mean, that's one of the best teams in the country in Kentucky. And the Mastodons only got beat by 12, and it was all basically in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the Kentucky Wildcat women are 19-2. Their only losses coming to North Carolina and Texas A&M.
Yeah. So, and the Mastodons were right there through three quarters. Now, they kind of got worn down, and Kentucky made some shots in that fourth quarter, but it also tells you if you get to the dance, you don't have to worry about brackets or where you're going to be sent, because this is a team that's good enough to compete with almost anybody in the country. Although I really wouldn't. There's a few I wouldn't want to have to.
But, I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, Kentucky, they beat the then 19th-ranked Illinois women by 76-53. I mean, there's wins by, over Mississippi State, 91-69.
Very, very dominant, convincing wins.
Oh, yeah, a bunch of them. I mean, over Georgia, 78-64. Over Florida, 71-55. It goes on and on.
And all of those by bigger margins than what they were able to beat Purdue Fort Wayne at home.
Yep.
So, but anyway, we've got great college basketball here. And if you're looking for it, you can find it. And then you look at the men. Indiana Tech men, I think, are 20-5, if I'm not mistaken.
They are 18-5.
18-5. Well, they're going to win their next two games.
Yes, they are.
I've already marked those in my book.
Yes, they are.
18-5. And
Yep.
I think they've won 7 straight. I think Indiana
Yep.
Tech women have won 12 straight.
Yep, you got it.
See, I did actually do homework here.
Sure
I do
did.
know a little something about these programs.
Oh, yeah.
But you've got, hot teams playing well. I think between the men and the women, I think they're both at Indiana Tech. I think they're both 15-1 in conference play.
Yes, they are. Nailed it.
Is there anything I'm going to get wrong today?
I think there was one, unfortunately. Might have to correct you
I
on
did say
this.
20, and it was 18.
There's one more. The St. Francis women are 10-3 in conference.
What did I say?
I think you said 10-1 or 10-2.
I don't even remember saying what they were.
Well, they're 10-3 in conference. So I just wanted to make sure we put that out.
Oh, I think I did say 15-1. Yeah, because I added it 15-1, 15-1, 13-1, or 13-0. Okay, so
it's all good.
So I'm embellishing the truth.
I mean,
now that we've got AI, we have technology allows us to say anything. It doesn't. Excuse me. Doesn't it seem crazy? All our lives were brought up told not to lie.
Yeah.
And then what happens? There's popular technology that we get as adults, which is all about a lie. I mean, it makes people say things they didn't say.
Yep.
You can now create tweets that were never tweeted.
Sure.
You hear Jim Coyle talking about the Zach Osterman tweet?
Yeah, that one was a little dumb, but
it was AI created. It was under Zach Osterman's account, and what they do, they take the tweet and they put it just like a tweet. I mean, it looks exactly like a tweet would appear on your phone or something, and then they screenshot it and put it out.
There was a key tell in that Zach Osterman tweet. His account was @tweetgenerator in that screenshot.
Yeah, I know.
So you got to have media literacy.
There's a friend of mine who is a dear man, but he's older, right?
Yeah.
He's he's up there in years, and he goes to Facebook, and half the stuff that's put on Facebook is not true.
No.
Okay, somebody's clowning just to put out a story that gets clicks or a trick. I mean, I don't know if they're scamming information. Who knows? But I can always tell that. And this gentleman, unfortunately, he is constantly reposting all of this fake stuff. And his friends are like, please stop. You've got to pay attention. It's Adam Schechter or whatever, instead, not Schefter or...
yeah.
You do have to be careful. But with AI, I mean, there's things you see now that are videos, and you don't know if they're even real people or.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, AI just is basically a lie machine.
But going back to this women's basketball in town, that means there's still only 4 conference losses between St. Francis, Indiana Tech, and the Purdue Fort Wayne women.
I like the way you say that. What about the men?
Yeah, between the men. I'll do the little math real quick here.
I know just 1 loss on the men's side at Indiana Tech. St. Francis is 5 losses? They're 8-5.
So 10 total, because Purdue Fort Wayne
is St. Francis 8-5? Did I get that right? Because I'm doing this by memory.
They are 8-5 in conference.
Again, just unbelievable what my memory capacity is today.
And then Tech is 15-1 in conference, and then obviously the Purdue Fort Wayne men are 10-4. So you're looking at only 10 losses among 3 teams in conference play here in town.
Yeah. So if you want to see some good basketball and you're frustrated by what you're seeing in the cream and crimson, we've got a place for you to go, and you don't have to go very far. Schaefer Center, Hutzel Center, or Gates or the Coliseum. And the best part, 2 of those teams, in fact, I guess all of the teams play double headers I can only say it once for the Mastodons. It happens to be Saturday.
Yes.
Normally they don't play double headers, but I believe the entire schedule for Indiana Tech and for St. Francis is made up of women's, men's conference double headers now that they're in conference play. And for the Mastodons, they will have a women's, men's doubleheader at the Coliseum coming up this Saturday. It's the finale of Mastodon Mania.
Mania.
Yeah, I know.
But no, like you said, I mean, those doubleheaders at the Hutzel and the Schaefer Center are just incredible value for local basketball.
Right. And since we're into lying and AI, it's $2 to get in. I don't know what it costs. I have no idea.
I don't know
Somebody's going to say, I heard on the radio it was only $2.
It was Brett Rose.
That was AI generated. It was not me. I really don't know what it costs, but I can tell you this. It doesn't matter what it costs. It's great entertainment for the buck.
And worth it. Yeah, absolutely. But no, this entire show has been produced by AI,
yeah.
And none of you are none the wiser.
We are not to be held accountable for anything that you have learned or heard in the first 15 minutes of the Sports Rush today.
Someone texted in. They want to know if they can bring a sign to the game on Saturday. They want to say that they want a sign that says Sports Rush is better than the Gottlieb Show.
Oh, yeah, hey, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
You bring that sign.
I might make it for you. I might. There's another trademark. I got to get the trademark on that one, too.
You do.
Well, speaking of Doug Gottlieb, we have to tell his story this week.
We do.
He's had a little bit of a different week while the Phoenix have had their bye, so they haven't played since last weekend. But for Doug Gottlieb, the bye means bye.
See you later.
Yeah, see you later.
I'm going to New Orleans.
I'm going to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. You boys stay up here and enjoy the practices in like 10-degree weather in Green Bay. We'll tell you about that when we come back. Let's check in on what's happening in the world of sports with today's top headlines. Here's Adam Lundy.
All right, thanks, Brett. We're going to get into the NBA trade deadline in a little bit more detail later on in the show. But the Pacers are trading injured center James Wiseman and cash considerations to the Toronto Raptors for a top 55 protected pick in the 2026 draft, a league source told the Indy Star at Thursday's NBA trade deadline. Moving Wiseman gives the Pacers some space under the luxury tax and gives them an open roster spot that they can use on the buyout market or to find a player from elsewhere. Well, the Utah Jazz waived former Indiana player Jalen Hood-Schifino on Thursday. Andy Larson of the Salt Lake Tribune reported Hood-Schifino, who just made 2 appearances this season due to a left hamstring injury, could draw interest on the open market for teams looking to give the number 17th overall pick another chance. Again, he was part of that trade. He landed in Utah because of the Doncic trade to L.A., but now he's off the Jazz. One more for you today, Brett. Virginia Hallis McCaskey, who inherited the Chicago Bears from her father, George Hallis, but avoided the spotlight during 4+ decades as a principal owner, has passed away at the age of 102. McCaskey's family announced the death through the team that she passed away today. She had owned the Bears since her father's death on October 31st of 1983. And those are your top stories today, Brett.
Coming up, we've got Rob Blackman, voice of the Purdue Boilermakers, who will join us. Also, hour number 2, we talked to Fort Wayne's own Jalen Jackson, having an unbelievable season. And for those of you that haven't heard, Jalen was named by collegeinsider.com as the mid-major player of the year at the halfway point. Unbelievable. I mean, think how many players there are. There's about 300 mid-major programs, and everybody's got 5 starters. That's 1,500 players all across the country. Jalen Jackson named as the mid-season player of the year. And he hasn't slowed down.
No.
So I don't know what it's going to take to take it away from him at the end of the season, but he certainly has lived up to that kind of billing. So he's been great. He's going to join us coming up at about 5:20. Also, Eric Dudkevich to give us a preview of tomorrow night's girls high school basketball sectional semifinals, and some of them aren't decided because, remember, Concordia postponed. So Concordia's got quarterfinals tonight, semifinals tomorrow, championship on Saturday, and Tim Manigault will be unavailable and sleeping for Sunday. The Concordia athletic director.
That's a crazy schedule, but good luck to the girls.
Yep. All right, so we will take a time out, and we will come back. We'll talk about Gottlieb's crazy week. Also, trades in the NBA. We got to catch up, and we'll do that because today was the trade deadline, and there's a pretty long list of some salary dumps and some roster cleanup on aisle 2. But we'll get you up to date with everything that's happened in the NBA as well. It's all part of the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Don't think we've ever had a situation where the Mastodons have played a team where their coach has been somewhere else for a few days. But Doug Gottlieb has actually been down on Radio Row down at the Super Bowl doing his show, while his basketball team that he is the head coach of has stayed in Green Bay preparing for the Mastodons, which is the game Saturday, which is kind of ironic. Now, I don't know what it means or if it means anything as far as how they'll perform on Saturday. He was there for practice on Monday and Tuesday. Then he shot down to New Orleans, did shows Wednesday and today. And from what I understand, he's flying back. He'll meet up with the team tomorrow and then be here to coach on Saturday night. I do like, though, the idea of the sign. I think I have to see that sign.
We do want to see that sign. You know who you are. You know what you need to do. Actually, we want to see a bunch of those signs. Anybody who's listening, if you want to make a sign that says Sports Rush, better than the Gottlieb show.
And what we should do, we should just go ahead, because now we've got the fancy graphics. We can actually tweet back because our new or text back.
Yes.
Our new text program.
Yes.
Yeah, we should text like the show logo. We could text the 1380 The Fan logo, so we could actually make a sign that looks really official if you want to.
We'll see. I don't know if you know who texted this in. I don't know his sign making capacity.
Nobody's crazy enough that he might just do
it. I'll give you that. We love you, buddy.
But anyway, no. So Gottlieb is missing practice today.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if he's going to be at a practice tomorrow. He's all that we've heard is that he is getting back and joining up with the team today, or tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Which means, do they meet up when they get to Fort Wayne? Who knows?
It says he's expected back at practice on Friday, according to the Green Bay Press-Gazette. So he should be back in Green Bay tomorrow.
Okay.
But, I mean, like you said,
I just can't picture Doug Gottlieb makes, $1 million or whatever on the radio show, that he's going to, jam into a 6.5-hour bus ride to go play. I guess they probably have done it if they bus to Cleveland State. I'm not sure if Green Bay buses or flies. I really don't know.
I don't know either. But like you said, even if it doesn't affect the way that Green Bay plays or their preparation for the game on Saturday, it's just bad optics all around, especially when your team is 2-22 and on a 19-game losing streak.
And that's the biggest issue right now is everybody's got them under a microscope because they haven't won since the Eisenhower era.
Pretty much.
I think they won early December.
November 19th was their last win.
Oh, it was November.
Yeah. November 19th against SIUE.
Huh. Well, it's been a while, but now they've been hit with injuries. They've been hit with their the guy that was leading the nation in scoring being out of their lineup. So in some ways, you take a step back, but you do need to find a next man up. And by this point of the season, hopefully you've figured out how to absorb as many of those points as possible, and they just can't get over the hump and find the way to win. Hopefully that doesn't happen Saturday.
No, not letting it happen on Saturday.
Double header at the Coliseum. Women will take on Wright State, and the men will take on Green Bay. And, get your signs ready for the Coliseum on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
260-447-8500, 260-447-8500. So today's the NBA trade deadline, and a lot of teams were meeting with their accountants today and going through where they were at with salary cap numbers and also looking at deals they may want to make in the offseason. They've got to figure out what players is it best to dump now to free up cash then. And so you've got a lot of late moves. Some are not marquee. Some are just roster construction and taking care of salary cap issues.
Yeah.
Like, hey, look, Jalen Hood-Schifino.
Yep.
Okay, he wasn't going to play no matter where he went.
No.
And so somebody finally had to decide if he's not going to play, we're not going to keep him on our payroll, and they just let him go.
Yep.
Raptors have acquired James Wiseman. He was never going to fit with the Pacers, and so the Pacers dumped off Wiseman.
Yep.
Of course, he's out for the season anyway.
Right. So basically, I mean, there's no point in having 3 injured centers or 3 injured players out for the season on your roster. This frees up a little bit of money and a roster spot for the Pacers.
Other salary cap casualties. Memphis is sending Marcus Smart to Washington.
Yep.
The rumor or report on that is that they wanted to clear some money so they could sign Jalen Jackson to Jaren? Is it Jaren?
Jaren Jackson.
Jaren Jackson.
Yep.
Yeah, because I got Jalen on my mind because he's going to be our guest in the second hour. Jaren Jackson to a max contract in the offseason. The Bucks have acquired Kevin Porter Jr. from the Clippers.
Yep.
Of course, the Bucks overnight, I don't know if it was last night or this morning. I didn't hear about it until this morning. But Middleton is gone.
Yep, they get rid of Middleton, and they bring in Kyle Kuzma from the Washington Wizards.
Cavaliers have acquired DeAndre Hunter from the Hawks.
Yeah, that's a improvement at forward for them, absolutely.
Clippers have landed Bogdanovich?
Bogdanovich. There you go.
3-player deal with the Hawks.
Yep, get some more shooting there in the Clippers off the bench.
Yusuf Nurkic.
Yeah, that was a whole situation in Phoenix for a couple months. He had kind of been wanting to go, and the fans kind of wanted him gone. So
goes to the Hornets.
He's out.
Patrick Baldwin Jr. gets sent to San Antonio, and maybe some Dons fans remember Patrick Baldwin Jr.
Yeah, I do.
For like the 4 games he played at Milwaukee.
Yep.
The Heat acquired Davion Mitchell, but more importantly, the Heat have finally moved Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, they did.
And Golden State stepped up, put a pretty good package together, including Wiggins.
Yeah, they did.
And like I said, I'm shocked. I guess desperation allows people to look past a lot of faults because, to me, Jimmy Butler isn't helping you. And you must be pretty secure in the culture you've got with Steph and Draymond to take the risk of bringing a Jimmy Butler. I guess it's like alpha dogs. You know what it reminds me of? You remember Caesar, the guy who trained the dogs?
Yeah,
the
dog whisperer guy.
The dog whisperer, right. It's kind of like bringing a dog into the pen that joins the other dogs that can teach the new dog the proper behaviors. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, and
they're all dogs out there in Golden State.
I'm not thrilled with that lineup. I don't know what they're hoping to accomplish with that move, but best of luck to the Warriors.
Well, the one thing is we know Miles Turner is still a Pacer because the Lakers acquired center Mark Williams from the Hornets.
They sure did.
And I think the Hornets did well. They got Dalton Knecht. You know, last year in the draft, I thought he was one of the steals of the draft.
Yeah, and didn't get a whole lot of time in L.A. I know LeBron is not a huge fan of playing with rookies, but I think he could get more of a chance to develop and become a better player in Charlotte. And then the Lakers get their AD replacement. I know he's not at the same tier, but tall, lanky guy who can defend the rim.
And Cam Reddish, part of that deal, going to Charlotte as well.
Yep.
And the Pelicans have dealt Brandon Ingram to the Raptors, and Jericho Sims is going to the Bucks as well. So the Bucks, they parted with some guys, and they've brought a couple names in. When you take the plus and the minus, what do you think for the Bucks, Adam? You follow the NBA much closer than I.
Yeah, I kind of think that Chris Middleton was a big part of the Bucks and their identity, but they're switching towards the offensive sides of things. Clearly, they've clearly made it obvious that they're moving away from trying to be a defensive team. We saw that when they got rid of Drew Holiday. Now they're getting rid of Middleton, and they bring in a shooter in Kyle Kuzma. So we'll see how he works with Dame and Giannis.
Lonzo Ball and the Bulls have agreed to a 2-year contract extension. And we'll talk more about the whole Jimmy Butler situation and who all was involved in that, because it's kind of a complicated trade.
Yeah.
But it did happen. By the way, did you see how Kevin Love found out?
I did, yeah. He just had a fan.
A fan in the front row.
Yelling at him. The trade, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how things go now.
Jimmy Butler's going to the Warriors. And Kevin Love's turning around asking the fan the details.
Who'd we get?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That was funny.
During a game, they're getting the update on the trade wire. All right, we got to take a break because we've got to talk some Purdue basketball. Rob Blackman is going to join us coming up next. It's the Sports Rush on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. Fort Wayne's own Jalen Jackson is going to join us on the program coming up in hour number 2. Also, Eric Dutkevich to get us a preview on area girls high school basketball sectionals. Right now, we want to talk Purdue basketball. No one better to talk about it with than the voice of the Purdue Boilermakers. Rob Blackman is joining us here on the Sports Rush, and it's been a good run for the Boilermakers. Of course, they had that little hiccup with Ohio State, but going on the road, winning at Iowa City, and doing it with a type of toughness that they displayed. I was very impressed with the game Tuesday night.
Yeah, Brett, it has been a good run. Thank you for having me on. You know, ever since the calendar has turned to 2025, Purdue's only lost one game, and that was the Ohio State game you mentioned. And that so that's 9-1 in the month of January/February. So that's been a pretty good start. And yeah, that win on Tuesday night, a little bit differently is how Purdue had to find a way to win that game from what they've been doing really in the last 7-8 games or so, and that they just had to find a way to outscore Iowa. You know, Purdue's been really good defensively. Again, ever since the calendar turned to 2025, Purdue's been actually the best team in the Big Ten as far as points allowed. But even against Iowa, you're going to have trouble slowing those guys down because they're just so good offensively. I mean, they lead our league in scoring per game for a reason. That's because they have some really skilled guys offensively. So it was a good win. Again, it was done in a very different fashion than the other victories that had come Purdue's way here to start the new year. But yeah, you'll take them any way you can get them, especially on the road.
The one constant of that victory, though, was Braden Smith was the one who led it. 31 points, spectacular offensive performance, 11 for 15. He just played with a little bit of extra energy, 5 for 7 from 3. And it seems to me that perhaps Braden had to kind of find where it was, what his role was without Zach Edey on the floor and how this offense was going to flow. And it seems like now it's coming, and he plays with much more confidence as a result.
I would say even more specifically to that game, Brett, the fact that Trey Kaufman-Renn was out of the game in the first half with foul trouble, and that Braden had to really take on a scoring role that, look, he's willing and able to do, but he doesn't always have to, especially when you have guys like Zach Edey or Trey Kaufman-Renn patrolling the post. You don't necessarily have to score a whole lot of points. But that was the case on Tuesday night, again, because of the foul trouble with Trey, that Braden did have to step it up offensively. I'm glad you mentioned the 5 of 7 3-point shooting. You know, he had been, I mentioned this on the radio broadcast, he was just 5 of 25 in his last 25 3-point shots coming into that game. And not that that's a terrible percentage, but certainly he's much better and more capable than 5 of 25. So to see him recapture some of that magic and go 5 of 7 from that 3-point line on Tuesday night, as a Purdue fan, you just hope that's a sign of good things to come. Because of all the things Purdue has done well as a team here in January/February, they have not shot the 3 well. Now, granted, Tuesday night as a team, Purdue was good from 3, especially in the second half. But Purdue's already had, 3, 4 games, maybe 5, where they've shot less than 30% from 3 in the last 10 or 11 games. So to see the 3-point shooting come around, not only for Braden, but for this entire team, hopefully that's a trend that continues. Because, Purdue was second in the country last year in 3-point shooting percentage, 40.6, maybe 40.5%. And that was good enough for second place in the entire country. And basically, most all the same shooters are coming back. Mason Gillis probably being the major exception to that. Lance Jones, yes, he did shoot the 3 ball for Purdue and make a lot of threes, but he was Purdue's worst 3-point shooter by percentage of all the guys that shot him regularly. So, in essence, outside of Mason Gillis, you have all the same guys back from a team last year that shot 40% from 3 collectively. If Purdue can recapture that magic, and again, maybe Tuesday night was a step in that direction. If Purdue can start doing that again, Purdue's going to be really, really tough to beat here down the stretch.
What has Caleb Furst meant to this club? Because to me, it's so great to see a local kid from here in Fort Wayne that's had his ups and downs through his career at Purdue, but it looks like he's going to end his Purdue career on kind of a high note. And at Iowa, 10 points, 9 rebounds. He's really kind of found his way in that power forward spot.
Well, and the other thing, Brett, he's unless the bottom just completely falls out here, and I don't think it's going to, he's also going to end his career as Purdue's all-time winningest player, at least for the moment, because he has 110 career wins right now, which ties the most of any four-year senior at Purdue. There's never been a senior class that has won 111 games, and right now he's at 110, and he's the only senior on the team, so he's the one. He is the senior class all to himself. So I mean, what a talk about a feather in your cap. A guy that, as you mentioned, comes from Fort Wayne, former Indiana Mr. Basketball, and was really a guy that played a lot as a freshman. He was the Big Ten Freshman of the Week one week early in his career. Started a lot of games as a freshman. Last year did not play as much. Now part of that was because he was Zach Edey's backup, and there's no worse spot on a basketball team, I think, than to be the backup to Zach Edey, because you're never going to get in the game, unfortunately.
Maybe the guy that guards him at practice, that might be worse, the guy that has to guard Zach Edey every day.
Yeah, good point. But now that Caleb's had a chance to really kind of resurrect his career as a senior, I mean, wow. And look, ever since he's been inserted in the starting lineup, which was that game at Minnesota, that first game in January, I'm talking about, Purdue's having great success since the calendar turned to 2025. Well, one of the reasons for that is that's the game that Caleb First was inserted into the starting lineup, that game on January the 2nd at Minnesota. And he's been in the lineup ever since, and wouldn't you know it, Purdue's only lost one game, as I mentioned. So good for him to not only resurrect the career, find himself back in the starting lineup, find himself playing some meaningful minutes, but the fact that, he's going to be Purdue's all-time winningest player is really something to relish. Although I must admit, I overheard him. I was eavesdropping on him the other day. He was talking to some of the juniors, Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer in particular, and he was talking about how he's about to become Purdue's all-time winningest player. He said, the problem, guys, is that it's only going to last for about a year, because when you guys are done as seniors, you will have taken the mantle as all-time winningest senior class. But at least for, a good year or so, Caleb First is going to be able to say he won more games in his Purdue career than anyone else in school history. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, those guys got nice little head start. But I want to ask you about Camden Heide, because I thought, I guess, and I don't want to point out a player that maybe isn't performing to their potential, but I expected more from him. What's missing with Heide? What do we need to see for his development?
Well, if he could just get a shot to go down, and I'm talking about a three-point shot, Brett, I think that would do worlds for his confidence. Right now, if we're just talking Big Ten games only, Camden's only shooting 17% from three. This is a guy who last year spent the entire season in the mid-40s percentage-wise. Very, very capable three-point shooter. For whatever reason, he has not been able to make shots this year, especially from outside. It's not like he hasn't contributed. That tournament we played in San Diego in November, Cam was instrumental in helping our team have success. He was, not only was he in the starting lineup, but he played well. He had, I think, 15 points against North Carolina State in that semifinal game. Really played at a high level. But for whatever reason, since we've come back from San Diego, he just has not been able to make a shot. I firmly believe if he could just see a couple go through the basket, that he'd be right back on track. But it's just a tough go for him. He made a three-pointer Tuesday night at Iowa, and it was up against the shot clock. It was well defended. He had to kind of hurry it, and he made it. And I thought to myself, in the back of my mind, I was thinking maybe this will be a shot that gets him going. But then he missed, I think, his next 3 or 4 attempts. So I would say the simple answer, and I know it's a very simple answer, if he could just see a couple of shots go through the basket, I think that'd do a ton for his confidence, and I think it would really help him kind of jumpstart and get things going again here late in the season.
Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilermakers, joining us here on the Sports Rush. Rob, when I looked at the schedule a month ago, I thought the real tough stretch was going to start next week. But then you look at USC, and all of a sudden they've got a win over Michigan State. They're going to be coming in with some confidence and feeling good about how they're playing. But this next 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks, it's a grind. Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Indiana. I guess if you're going to win the Big Ten, this is where it has to happen.
Yeah, and you're spot on with USC. I'm with you. a month ago, I would have thought, Brett, that the USC game Friday night is not going to be a difficult one. But I have since changed my tune on that, and it's because really what you mentioned, what they did to Michigan State last weekend. Now, I would say this. They did lose on Tuesday night at Northwestern. Northwestern not very good, and, of course, without Barnheiser, they're really laboring. But so Northwestern was able to beat them. Now, granted, that game was in Evanston. So I don't know if that's good news or bad news for Purdue. Gene Cady always said it's not who you play, it's when you play them. So I'm not sure what USC team we're going to see tomorrow or on Friday night, tomorrow night. But I do think this. They certainly are more than capable. And the one thing they have going for them is their coach, Eric Musselman. Purdue fans might remember he was a coach at Arkansas last year, and Arkansas actually beat Purdue. Now, it was a preseason exhibition game. It was a charity game, but Arkansas did win that game, and that was with Zach Edey and with that group that Purdue had last year. So Eric Musselman, one would think, has a pretty good game plan for Purdue tomorrow night, but we'll see. I'm a little hesitant to give Purdue a victory tomorrow night. A month ago, I would have said this might be an easy one, but now I'm not so sure.
Well, and it's one of those, and it's one of the things with the psyche of an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old college kid. You get that big emotional win. You feel good about yourself. Maybe you make that long trip into the Midwest. Maybe you're just not quite ready, and I don't want to make excuses for them, but I do think after having spent the last 3 days in West Lafayette, they'll be well rested and ready to go on Friday night.
Yeah, that's the beauty of, and there aren't a lot of advantages to making that trip from obviously California to the Midwest. But one advantage is as you just said, after you play that first game in Evanston, now you have 3 days to stay in the Midwest and get a little bit more acclimated to things and get yourself ready to play Purdue. So that is something they have going for them. The other thing, look, they have a ton of transfers, as typically happens with a brand new head coach. You're going to have a ton of transfers, but it's a ton of grad transfers or seniors, 4-year guys coming from other schools. They're actually one of the oldest teams in all of college basketball. If you just go by age, they're top 5 in the country and oldest team. So they do have experienced players, guys that have been through the ringer. Granted, it was at other schools, most of them, but they do certainly have experienced players. So they'll have that going for them tomorrow night.
It will be USC Purdue coming up tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Mackey Arena, and we will have that broadcast for you on our sister frequency at 92.3 FM. Hope you do tune in, and the voice you'll hear bringing you the action, Rob Blackman. Always appreciate it, Rob. Have a great Thursday, and look forward to your call tomorrow.
Awesome, Brett. Thanks for having me.
Yep, that's Rob Blackman joining us here on the Sports Rush. And, boy, that schedule, what a grind.
Yeah.
They have to go to Chrysler Center and play in Ann Arbor on Tuesday night. A big game, Purdue, Michigan, right?
You have to think
it's
so.
It's on Peacock.
Oh, okay.
But I got Peacock.
Well, good for you. I don't.
I've only jumped in because they gave me $19.99 for an entire year of Peacock.
Take advantage of the deals.
But Purdue plays Michigan on Tuesday. The next weekend, they've got Wisconsin coming into Mackey Arena. Then they go back to Michigan to take on Michigan State before the rivalry game at Bloomington against the Indiana Hoosiers. And then UCLA makes their visit into Mackey Arena. And you wonder where UCLA will be. Will they be on the bubble? Will they be needing a win? Because that's the other factor you've got to look at as you get to this point in the season. If teams don't have that marquee win on their resume, they're a little more dangerous when you get late in the season. But a tough schedule from now through the end of the month for the Purdue Boilermakers. And it may start tomorrow with USC. No line on the game as far as I can see. So not sure. I would expect Purdue's going to be favored by probably around 10 to 11 points. Because I just think that Vegas will put it like between 10 and 12. But I think USC could be dangerous. They're trying to build their resume. They're coming in knowing how tough it is to win in Mackey Arena. They've been there for a couple of days now. They've gotten accustomed to the environment. It's not going to be nearly as loud when you're there for practice, but I would not mark this as a Sharpie in the win column at this point. 260-447-8500, our Parkview Sports Medicine text line coming up in hour number 2. We've got Jalen Jackson. We've got Eric Dudukevich. And we've got some Super Bowl history that we're going to, I'm going to give Adam a little quiz. We'll see how good he does. And that comes up after the top of the hour. It's the Sports Rush. Yeah, we're turning the tables.
I'm scared.
I put the list together today. No more of that Tuesday time capsule trivia stuff.
No.
I want to challenge you in this one.
All right, we'll see how I do.
Yep, we'll find out. 1380 The Fan, 100.9 FM.